You're listening to The Empowered Advocate, a podcast from Greensboro Pregnancy Care Center. Hey, Empowered Advocate listeners, this is Mary, your host, and today's episode will be another conversation that we're sharing with you that I had with a student on UNCG's campus. So every so often during the school year, we have started going out onto the college campus just to engage with people and ask them some questions to see what their views are on abortion and to practice using the SLED tool. If you're not familiar with SLED, I'd encourage you to go back to our previous episodes, check out the one called How to Defend the Pro-Life Position. And in that episode, Carter and I talk together. We talk about this method or this tool called SLED that we use in order to defend our pro-life views. And we got a lot of good feedback about that episode, but what we wanted to do was to provide you with an example of really putting that tool into practice. And so this is the second episode where we're sharing with you how to do that. If you didn't listen to the first one where we interview a guy on campus, you can definitely check that one out later as well. So in this episode, we're talking to a freshman. Her name is Erin. And at the beginning of the episode, I start out just asking her a few questions just to give you some context. What we have when we go on campus is it's a piece of paper that is in survey form. So it's got 6 questions. And the purpose of these 6 questions is just to really get an idea of where people stand on abortion. And they're very generic questions, and you'll hear me asking them in a second. You might be listening to this and think, okay, well, when I'm talking to my friends and family, I'm not using a survey. I'm trying to engage them on a more, personal level. But listen into these questions, because while you won't be giving your friends and family A, B, C, D options to choose from, you can use these questions and kind of reword them in order to get a baseline to work from, to get an idea of what their beliefs are, and then use their answers to those questions to ask follow-up questions. And you'll see that in practice in this episode. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll be kind of walking with you throughout the conversation. I'll pause it every so often to kind of point out some things. So I'll go ahead and get started. This is a conversation at UNCG between me and a lovely young lady named Erin. This is Mary Holloman. I'm on UNCG today, and I'm talking with the lovely Erin. Say hi, Erin.
Hi.
Okay, so Erin, I'm just going to ask you a few questions to get some background information on you, and then I'll jump into the questions for the actual interview. So first of all, I know you just told me, but tell me again for the audio, what year are you?
I'm a freshman here.
Okay, and if you can share if you want to, you don't have to. If not, what religion do you associate with, if any?
I'm a Christian.
Okay, great. So my first question, like I said, I'm representing the Care Center, and we're talking a little bit about abortion here on campus today. So my first question is, do you think abortion should be legal in all cases, legal in most cases, or illegal in all cases, or illegal in most cases?
Well, I kind of am iffy when it comes to certain situations, because of course with my religion, I would be against it, but I feel like in some situations, like say if a girl, she gets raped and she gets pregnant, I would think she should have the option whether she should keep the baby or not. But I'm not really sure what I really stand for, basically.
Okay, so probably not something that comes up in conversation a lot. Yeah. Okay, so but you would say, sounds like you say legal in certain cases, like with rape. Would that be?
Yes.
Okay. So my follow-up question is, regardless of whether or not you think it should be legal or illegal, do you think abortion in general is morally right or morally wrong?
I personally think it's wrong, because I feel like even if you don't want to keep a baby, you should still have it, because there's lots of families that can't have babies and they can adopt the baby. It's just certain situations that you don't have to keep the baby, but I think it's wrong, basically.
Okay. So my next question would be, and you kind of already answered this a little bit, but besides rape, are there any other circumstances where you would say abortion would be permissible?
None that I can really think of off the top of my head. The first thing I think of is rape, basically, yeah.
Okay. Well, my next question is, so in your opinion, at what point do you believe that life begins?
Um, I think it begins as soon like it doesn't to me as soon as a baby is like formed. I think that's when it begins. I mean, even before, I guess you could say, the heartbeat and the brain forms or whatever. I think it's a baby even when it's just a little even when it's just small enough to have an abortion. I think that's it's still a baby. So
Okay, yeah. Well, biology and the science of embryology, it just calls it conception, but it basically affirms what you were saying. At the moment of conception, when that new embryo exists, that's when a new life comes into being. Okay, so we've asked Erin a few questions and we've discovered a little bit about her viewpoint. So she said that she's a Christian. She believes abortion to be morally wrong, but she does, like a lot of people, think there should be an exception for rape. And one thing she said, and I'll quote her, she said, "I'm really not sure what I stand for." And that's a great place to work from. She's admitted she's not 100% sure. And so that's what we're going to try to dive into here. So if you'll notice, she did make a statement right at the end before I paused it. She said, "I think it's a baby, even when it's small enough to have an abortion." So that was kind of a vague statement. And it seems to imply that she thinks that the size of the baby, has something to do with when abortion is permissible. And we'll see this come out as the conversation unfolds, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So let's go ahead and get back to the conversation. Okay, so I guess my next question would be talking specifically about the rape scenario. So, what we're trying to do when we're out here on campus is try to determine at what point people believe abortion is okay, and then kind of explore that a little bit and go into the why. So, let's talk about rape. And first of all, I think we could both agree that rape is always 100% wrong, always a crime. It's always a tragedy when it happens. But let's say that there was a woman who gave birth and her child was a result of rape. And so she has this toddler now, say a 2-year-old. Would it be permissible to execute the 2-year-old toddler because of crimes that his father had committed in that scenario? Would it be permissible to execute him?
no, I don't think so, because I feel like the child didn't do anything. Like, the child didn't have, I guess you could say, have a say in whether it was born or not. Like, no, I don't think so. No. Mm-mm.
Okay. So what would be the main reason that because most people would say that they say, no, you can't kill a toddler, but we're trying to get into a little bit. So why can we not kill the toddler?
Well, one, it's a toddlers, and two, I like, no, that's terrible. Like, why would you want to kill a child? But, like, no, I don't know. Like, it's just, yeah, I don't think the child should be punished for something that the father did, you know? So, I don't know. I just don't think it's I don't think it's right for you to kill a child.
Not typical questions you get asked, right? Okay, so we'll pause real quick right there. So you saw that I used the toddler example, right? I pulled out the toddler and asked if a toddler, you heard the question, if the same situation, if there was rape, should the toddler be executed? And her response was absolutely not, no. So you'll see this sets me up perfectly to transition. So we've already established that life begins at conception, that at conception, a distinct whole living human being has come into existence. I've asked the scenario with the toddler. Now my question comes, what is the difference between the toddler and the newborn? So let's see how Erin responds to that. Well, so I guess my follow-up question would be, so what is the difference between the toddler whose father was a rapist? What's the difference between that toddler and the same person earlier when they're unborn? So what's the difference between the toddler and the unborn child who is also a result of rape?
um Um, Now that I think about it, there is no difference because it's still a child, even when it's in the womb. So I don't know. Yeah, it's still a child. So I don't know. I don't know.
That's acceptable answer. I don't know. Okay, so I love her response because it's just so honest. And she responds with, you know what? I don't know. I don't think there is a difference. And so now you'll see we can turn the conversation. We kind of agree, or we definitely agree that there's no difference between the born and the unborn. So now the next step we take is I'm trying to dive in and see, okay, then why do we make an exception? If there is no difference, what is the determining factor here? And we start getting into a little bit of the environment argument. So let's listen to where things go from here. Okay, well, the reason I ask is because most people will give rape as a reason for why abortion should be permissible. Some people give other reasons, but the reason that people fall back on is rape. And you can kind of understand where people are coming from because rape is outside of the woman's control. You know, she didn't choose that. It's a result of a crime that was committed against her. What I'm trying to get to the bottom of is what is the difference between an unborn child and someone who is outside of the womb? And if there is no difference, should abortion really be permissible? Should it be permissible to end a child's life based on their environment? What do you think? Do you think environment of a child is important in the issue of abortion?
Um, yeah, I think so. Yeah. Um, Now that you said something, I feel like I don't I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it all depends on what the mother wants to do because I feel like if a woman gets raped and has the baby, that was her decision. So nobody can I don't know. It's just hard to say when it comes to certain situations. So, but yeah, I do think the environment has something to do with like, the child or whatever, but yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now there's been a shift in the conversation. She said, I think it all depends on what the mother wants to do. So we've kind of seen this before. People will say they'll give hard and fast rules for when abortion should be permissible or not permissible. Then they'll start editing or amending their own statements and say, well, what really matters is what the mom wants to do. So next you'll see how I address that and kind of push her on that a little bit. Okay. So you also mentioned like it's kind of up to the mom. She's the one making the choice. So at what point, I guess, so let's talk about an unborn child specifically. We've already talked about toddler, and you said pretty clearly, no, you shouldn't kill a toddler. So let's talk about the unborn child. At what point throughout a woman's pregnancy, so throughout 9 months, at what point does the child get the right to live? So at what point does the woman no longer have the right to end the child's life in the womb?
Um, I feel like when the child starts to develop, like when its brain starts to grow, and then when it starts to, when it's like organs and like its heart and stuff starts to like grow, and like when you can hear a heartbeat, basically. Does that make sense? I don't.
So it sounds like development is the level of development is kind of important. Okay. So which would it, because you mentioned like organs developing and the heartbeat, and those things happen at different times in a pregnancy. Heartbeat starts at 21 days after conception. Organs usually develop by the 8th week of pregnancy, and then they just have to grow after that. So at which point can the child no longer be aborted?
Well, I would prefer if it didn't get aborted, like if it would get aborted before you hear a heartbeat, because you said 21 days. Okay, so before the 21 days, I feel like that's when they should like really make decisions. Should I keep the baby or not? But yeah, that's when I personally think they should like either abort it or not. So But yeah.
Okay, so now we're seeing another shift. She started talking about development. Did you hear that? She's saying, well, brain activity, the heartbeat. So you can see how easily most people's objections or justifications for abortion, they slide pretty nicely into one of the four categories, right? Size, level of development, environment, degree of dependency. So now she's jumped into the level of development camp. So you'll see how I kind of ask her some questions now about why development matters. So you mentioned a heartbeat. So what's important about the heartbeat? Why is that kind of the determining factor?
I feel like once the mother hears the heartbeat, she's gonna be like, oh, like it's an actual, like I feel like when you hear the heartbeat, you actual, like it's the actual baby, because like when you first find out you're pregnant, you're like, oh, like I'm pregnant. But then when you hear the heartbeat, you're like, oh, like I'm actually pregnant. It's the actual baby in my stomach. So I feel like with some women it may be like kind of hard to abort the baby once they hear the heartbeat. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the heartbeat symbolizes like you're actually pregnant. Like it just you're like it just I don't know. It just shows that the baby is like I guess you say healthy. It's growing. I don't know, but yeah.
Interesting. So, and if at any point I'm communicating it wrong, just correct me. But it sounds like you're saying that it depends on what the mother knows almost. So, like if you kind of mentioned whenever she hears the heartbeat. So, like the heartbeat starts at 21 days, but a mom might not hear the heartbeat until I don't know, 7, 8 weeks after the heart's been beating for a while. So is it up to the mother or is it about the actual baby?
Um, I feel like it's. I feel like both. Um, yeah. Well, actually, I feel like it's up to the mother because she's the one that's carrying the baby. She's the one that's gonna eventually give birth to the baby if she has the baby. So I feel like it's up to the mother of the child of whether the baby should live or not.
Okay, so quick pause here. So, what I'm about to do next is basically just repeat back to her everything I've heard her say. And so, in our podcast about how to defend the pro life position, we talked about reflective listening and how helpful it can be just to repeat things back to make sure you're understanding. And what you'll see is that when I repeat back to her, she corrects me on some things that I misunderstood. So that's super helpful. It makes the person you're talking to feel heard and listened to, and it also just gives you guys some common ground as you're talking. So let's jump back in. Okay, so that's interesting because now you started out saying that you personally didn't think abortion was right, and then you mentioned, well, it's a permissible only in cases of rape. But now it sounds like you're saying it's really just up to the mom, regardless of the situation. Is that right, or are you still sticking to?
With like rape when it comes to like a rape situation.
So in situations of rape, but it's up to the mom. Okay, so kind of getting back to the original question about the toddler, you've mentioned development, and you've mentioned kind of environment and stuff. So let's make it a little different scenario. We've talked about the toddler. Let's say that toddler was me, and so I'm grown. I'm an adult now. I'm more developed than that toddler was. I'm more developed than the unborn child that I used to be, the embryo I used to be. Let's say that I was born as a result of rape. Would it be permissible to execute me because of what my father did? And if it is, or if it's not permissible, why is it not permissible to do that to me now, but it is permissible to do that to me at an earlier stage of development?
Um, I because I if you I don't know, like I feel like if you are a grown up and you are a result of rape, it's it's not it's I feel like it's I don't know, I'm not gonna say it's different from when because you have a say basically. Like if somebody, because I feel like when you're a baby, you don't have a say, and then when you're a grown up, you're in charge of your life. You're in charge of what happens to you. So I I don't know.
No, I appreciate you thinking through it. So as an adult, I have a say, and I have choices. I have rights. So, are we saying that unborn children don't have rights?
They do have rights, but I just, I mean, I don't know. I feel like when you're when you're pregnant, well, when a woman is pregnant, they have more. They have to say in what goes on with their pregnancy, what goes on with the baby. So, and then when you're a grown up, you're not. You have your own say in your life. So I don't know. I don't.
So it sounds a little bit like when a woman is pregnant, her rights are more important. Maybe is that
yeah, because when a woman is pregnant, they basically give life to the baby. They're what the baby needs. You know, they give the baby everything. So, yeah, yeah.
okay? So you'll see again. Erin is kind of progressing through another part of the SLED argument. So we've talked about rights, how, well, an adult has rights that maybe the baby doesn't. And you'll see she was very quick to correct me and say, when I asked her, so the unborn children don't have rights? She was very quick to correct me. Yes, they do. But then she starts talking about dependency. So she brings up, well, when a baby is inside of a mother, she's completely dependent on that mother. So there's degree of dependency. So now I shift into another example, pull out the toddler and ask her a question to help draw the comparison between, a toddler and an unborn person and how there's no difference. So let's see how that plays out. What about this scenario? Because you're right, the mother she supplies the unborn child with nutrients and everything that child needs. Now the child is a separate person within the mother. So what if you had, I keep bringing up, I'll bring up a toddler again because it's easy. We all know a toddler, right? What if you had a toddler who had some medical issues, severe medical issues, and they needed to be on dialysis, or they needed to be on some sort of in the hospital in some situation where they had to be supported by life. They're depending on doctors, they're depending on a machine, whatever, to keep them alive for a period of time. Would it be justifiable to say, well, that toddler is really at the mercy of these doctors, really at the mercy of these machines, probably couldn't live by itself, so let's just go ahead and execute the toddler, because the toddler doesn't really have a say in whether or not he or she is kept alive. Would that be permissible in that situation?
Are you saying that the parents make the decision on whether to keep the toddler alive, or the doctors?
Yeah, let's just say parents. So let's say the toddler is temporarily needs some help, or whatever the situation might be, maybe has some organ issues, needs some assistance, is going to live, after the assistance, but just needs some temporary help. And that toddler, the 2-year-old doesn't really have a say, or can't really verbalize, his needs. Is it permissible to just go ahead and execute that toddler because that toddler is drawing on the strength of a machine or whatever?
No, I feel like if the toddler is going to live with the help of the machines, I don't see why they would take him off the machine. Like that's not really that doesn't make sense to me. But
because at that point it would be murder.
Yeah. So yeah, I just I don't see why some parents would do that if they know the child's going to live, but it's not my decision. So
yeah. And I guess that just kind of gets back to, for an unborn child, if a child's going to live, through a pregnancy, should it be permissible to end the life of that child because it doesn't really have a say or whatever? I guess that's kind of what we're trying to get at here. Okay, so this particular part of the conversation was so interesting to me because you'll see that she acknowledges that both her and I agree that it would be murder to end the life of a toddler who was being assisted by a machine or whatever. And she makes the point of saying, well, if this toddler's going to live, why would anyone do that? So we agree on that. But what's happening is there's a disconnect. And ultimately, it's because she's not viewing the unborn child as really a human, as having the same value as a toddler. Because we know that the unborn child needs the assistance of the mother, is dependent on the mother for a temporary time, but is still valuable. So she's not recognizing that. And then you'll notice she puts that little disqualifier there at the end when she says, I don't know why a parent would do that, but it's not my choice. So this is really what I'm hearing a lot when I'm talking to people about this. A lot of people personally don't think abortion is the best choice, but they're not willing to say other people are wrong. That's just our culture. We don't want to call people out. We don't want to tell them that they're wrong. And that's what we're seeing. And I'm going back and listening to this. I'm way too nice to this girl. I totally should have called her out more about how her logic for the toddler, she's not applying it to the unborn, and that's inconsistent. But you'll see I'm about to transition here into asking her if she knows how abortion procedures work. We have a video when we go out that I offer to let people watch. Most people don't want to watch it, but here I talk to her a little bit about what an abortion procedure actually looks like. Let me ask you this. Are you familiar with what an abortion procedure is or how it works or anything? So I have a little 3-minute animated video. It's not graphic or anything. It shows like what a first trimester abortion looks like. Would you be willing to look at that and then let me know what you think about it? You obviously don't have to watch anything you don't want to.
Not really, because I've seen you know how on YouTube it has like the recommended. I've seen like videos about that. I just never click on it because I personally don't want to see that. That's sad to me, but no, I'm sorry.
No. That's fine. I would never ask you to watch anything you don't want to. Well, let me just ask you this. This will be one of my last questions. If you had to just describe what abortion is, how would you say that it is performed? Like what actually happened? Because some people, they know what abortion is, that it ends the life, but they don't know exactly what's taking place.
If I had to take a guess, I would think, of course, they would go to a doctor's office. They would have to sign papers about, whatever. And then do they like stick something in the women to like inject them with something? And then it takes effect like after a couple hours? I don't
Not quite, but no, but I mean, you have the right idea, I guess. So if someone were to do like the abortion pill, they can do that up to 9 weeks of pregnancy. It would be it'd be 2 pills. The first pill they would take, and it would end the life of the baby. And then the second pill they would take would cause contractions, and they would essentially just bleed out and cramp out the baby. The surgical procedure, it would actually be an in-house sort of thing where the woman would lay down and they would insert, they would numb the area. They would insert essentially a vacuum into the cervix and suction out the unborn child. And that would be for up to about 12, so throughout the first trimester. And then they would use a little curved instrument called a curette, and they would just scrape the lining of the uterus to make sure no remains of the baby were in there. And of course, the larger a baby gets, the more intensive the procedure would have to be. You'd actually have to start pulling the baby apart piece by piece and make sure all the pieces were there. But I ask people if they know how it works, just so you're familiar with, because this is something that's in the news all the time, but sometimes we don't really know what we're talking about. So I know you can't see Erin's reaction when I'm describing the abortion procedure, but she had just a face of disgust the entire time I was describing it. She kept turning her face away and looking down at the ground. It is okay. It is a good thing, actually, to explain to people what an abortion is, because a lot of people either A, don't know, or B, choose not to think about it. And you heard her say she just didn't want to see that. She wanted to watch the video. But we need to give people the chance to confront abortion and see the ugliness of it. So anyway, as I close out my conversation with Erin, this is something I've started trying to do more, asking the people I talk to, have your views changed at all from the beginning of our conversation to the end? So let's kind of hear what she has to say. Well, I guess my last question would be, at the end of this conversation, we've talked a little bit about rape. We've talked about how, there's really no essential difference between you, the adult, and you, the toddler, and you, the unborn child. Based off our conversation, would you say any of your thoughts about abortion have changed or not? And then if so, or if not, kind of just your thoughts behind that.
I feel like, if anything, it's made me think about, abortion as a whole and think about certain situations. Because at first I said that, of course, I think abortion should, be okay when a woman gets raped. But then you told me, like, what about if they're a toddler or if they're grown up? So it's made me rethink some things. But overall, I don't think my opinion about abortion has changed, honestly. I think it has stayed the same, basically.
All right, so you'll see that she kind of gives that disclaimer at the end. My views on abortion still haven't changed, but she did acknowledge that it had given her some things to think about and some deeper questions to kind of be asking herself about the issue. So, I look at a conversation like that, and honestly, when she said that at the very end, that's when I stopped recording and we talked for a little bit longer. I gave her some information about the pregnancy center and so on, but it discouraged me a little bit because I was like, man, we talked through all that. How can you not change your mind? You should change your mind. But really, thinking about it some more, the conversation did exactly what we hoped to do. It put a pebble in her shoe. It made her rethink some things. And the best we can hope for is that she'll take the things we talked about, maybe mull them over, and maybe down the road she'll change her mind in the future. But so that's another example for you of how to use SLED in a real life situation. And like I said, as I go back and I listen to these conversations, I'm able to critique myself and see, oh, maybe I might have said that differently, or maybe I would have asked a different question, or I would have been a little more tougher on certain questions. But that's how we get better, is we try these conversations. And you'll notice that she was very willing to talk. She was very willing to listen to my questions. And she sat there with me for 20 minutes because she just wasn't doing anything. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you to see this put in practice. Would love to hear feedback from you on how this is working for you. If you have used this tool, please let us know. Please just reach out to us and let us know how that worked for you. And if you liked this episode, if you want to hear more examples of this put in practice, let us know that too, so we can give you some more recordings like this. So again, you can go back and look at the previous episode for another conversation, and then go several episodes back, and you can see when we talk about how to defend the pro-life position using SLED. And of course, go to standtoreason.org or str.org for some more articles and resources about how to use this tool effectively. If you haven't already, click to subscribe and keep following us. And thanks so much, guys. We appreciate you as listeners. Want you to know that we are hearing your feedback and trying to continue improving the quality of both the audio, video, and of course, we want to keep giving you excellent content. So thanks so much for committing to listen to us. We value you guys. All right, we'll see you next time.